3 years ago, Traci Park was sworn in as a first-time elected official to represent neighborhoods on the west side of Los Angeles on the City Council. This year, she's become, for many, the face of fire recovery in the Pacific Palisades, which was devastated in the January wildfire. Councilwoman Park joins me now in the studio to talk about everything that's happened since the Palisade Fire and some other issues facing the City Council. So good to have you here in the studio with me, finally.
It's really good to sit down with you.
The neighborhoods that were affected by the Palisades and Eaton fires are just beginning the rebuilding process. And this is an evolving process because this is unprecedented. The city of LA has never had to deal with a task of this magnitude. You've been leading recovery efforts in the Pacific Palisades. How do you think the rebuilding process has been going overall?
Well, you know, as we hit this one-year mark, I think it is really important to acknowledge the milestones. And we've hit some big ones in record time. We had water and power restored within just a few weeks. All of the debris removed within 8 months, except for a tiny handful of properties that remain in abatement. And we have hundreds of new construction starts in less than a year. Our schools are already beginning to return. Marquez Elementary is back, Calvary is back, Pali High will be returning to their campus. Plans for restoration of the rec center and the library and restoration of the commercial corridor are well underway. There are signs of progress everywhere. But I remain mindful every day of the thousands of people who remain displaced, mired in uncertainty, struggling with insurance, and access to affordable capital to help them rebuild.
6,800 structures were destroyed in the Palisades Fire. And in early December, the City Council delayed a vote on waiving rebuilding fees in the areas that were destroyed. There are currently 2 fee waiver plans that are being considered. Can you talk about the 2 plans?
Sure. You know, and let me just set the table by noting that after the failures of January 7th that led to this community being devastated, it seems as though the least we can do is waive the fees for people trying to recover and rebuild. It's common to do that after a disaster like this, and we have done this before in the city of Los Angeles, including after the Northridge earthquake. I am of the opinion that all of the fees should be waived, regardless of use or type of construction, because whether you lost a home, an apartment, or a business, this rebuild is not voluntary, and it was through no fault of the individuals who owned those properties. And I think the least we can do is eliminate this additional barrier to folks that are trying to reinvest and rebuild this community. This has obviously been sent back to the Budget Committee for further discussions. There are a number of different proposals and ideas that are being considered, including waiving the fees simply for single-family homes. I don't think that goes far enough. I don't want to have to pick winners and losers. If you lived in a mobile home or a condo or a townhome or an apartment, you should be treated the same way and given the same opportunity to come back. I don't think those limitations go far enough. There are other discussions about potentially waiving the fees for all types of property, up to 110%. But I do expect that there is going to be further debate amongst the council members, especially in light of where we are with the city's budget. But, you know, this was a commitment that was made to the Palisades. This is something the mayor herself mentioned in her State of the City speech in April. This is work that I have been advancing since the aftermath of the fires, and I am going to continue to push for as much relief as I can get so that as many fire victims as possible have the opportunity to get back.
Right. And in terms of development, again, this is evolving, unprecedented. A pro-housing group is actually suing Governor Newsom after an executive order restricting duplex development in the areas affected by the fires. And I know people in the Pacific Palisades, residents there, are saying they don't want more density in certain neighborhoods because it could potentially make evacuations more difficult in the future. What are you hearing from Pacific Palisades residents these days?
Well, you know, we are spending billions of dollars a year already because of catastrophes from building in places that are unsafe. And in the Pacific Palisades, it is a miracle that no one died in that evacuation on January 7th. And we have very, very limited ingress and egress. We have narrow, substandard roads. We have places where emergency vehicles can barely get through, streets with no ability for emergency responders to turn around. We also have outdated infrastructure. And on January 7th, the underinvestment in our public safety resources and the adequate infrastructure, including evacuation routes necessary for an emergency of this scale, was on full display. And so the thought of blindly adding more density in places where we are already significantly challenged with ingress and egress is a huge concern. I continue to hear concerns from people in the Palisades about the development and the addition of new density. I share their concerns, and I'm going to continue to be a voice for them when it comes to responsible rebuilding.
We're going to take a quick break. I'll continue my conversation with LA City Councilwoman Traci Park in just a few minutes. Welcome back to In Focus SoCal. I'm here with LA City Councilwoman Traci Park to reflect on the last 3 years she's been in office. Let's get back to our conversation. The LAFD has been criticized for its handling of the Palisades Fire following an internal report the department released, which found lapses in communication, training, and preparedness. And back in October, Mayor Bass called for a full investigation into the Lockman Fire, which began a few days before the Palisades Fire. What do we know so far?
Well, let me first say it was an absolute gut punch to learn that the Lockman Fire on January 1st was intentionally started by a human being. In the wake of the January 7th fire, I was very, very clear that the LAFD should not investigate itself, given the scope and the scale of the incident. So I had, back in January, introduced a motion calling for a full outside independent investigation into the events of January 7th, including the lead up to the staging and the deployment. That has been approved and funded by council, and that is pending. The LAFD's own after action report, frankly, raised more questions than it answered. And while it offered a number of recommendations, including improving training and communication, changes to deployment on high-risk days, those are all important things, but I don't think they go anywhere near far enough to feel comfortable saying that we have corrected the problem or that we are adequately prepared for the next time an incident like this happens.
Well, the LAFD has a new chief, 30-year veteran, Jaime Moore. What do you feel he needs to focus on right now?
Chief Moore has his hands full.
He sure does.
He sure does. He has a fire department that is staffed for the 1960s. This is Los Angeles in 2025. We are going to have to prioritize the investment in the fire department. We have to get those staffing levels up to modern standards. 95% of our reserve fleet is still sitting over in the maintenance yard with no mechanics to fix them.
Why?
Well, because the city has not taken seriously the urgency, even in the aftermath of a disaster this size. You know, we're about to head into budget season again. I know Chief Moore is going to be asking for a significant raise in their budget. I will obviously be fully supportive of that. But the hard truth is, we are not going to solve these problems with the fire department inside the walls of our city budget. And that's why I am really proud to be supporting and one of the proponents of a ballot measure that will actually help increase long-term funding for our fire department so we can build new stations, have new equipment, and hire more staffing for our city.
The LA City Council approved a $1 million funding proposal for additional hiring of new LAPD recruits for January and February. But you and several other council members voted against this plan, instead opting to support a $4.4 million funding proposal made by Councilman John Lee that backed Mayor Bass's original request to fund up to 410 hires. What are your thoughts on this issue?
Staffing levels at LAPD, in my view, are dangerously, critically low. We are about to fall down to 8,600 sworn police officers in a city of 4 million people. We are on the cusp of the World Cup, the Super Bowl, and the Olympics. If you had an opportunity to read the LAPD's own after-action report from the Palisades Fire, you already know what a huge strain that one incident was on staffing. And as that became compounded by other ongoing crises around the city and civil unrest, the strains that we are putting on our police department currently are untenable. So I support whatever investment it takes to keep recruits coming through the academy, because we cannot keep up with the attrition out of the department. The direction that we have given the department over the last several years is to ramp up their staffing in order to be ready for major emergencies and world events coming to Los Angeles. The fact that we had to argue for an hour in council about making a basic investment in public safety in our city concerns me deeply.
Some good news that has come to light at the end of 2025 is that LA saw 2 consecutive years of a decline in homelessness for the first time ever. And you have been involved in a lot of efforts in your district. Is there one particular factor that you think led to the decline?
It was the determination to get it done. I have been very, very focused on this issue, and in my council district, we have now successfully housed hundreds of people who were previously living in tents and vehicles on our streets and sidewalks. We have almost no tent encampments left. We've done this by leading with offers of interim housing and services, but I have also followed through by regulating our public spaces and ensuring that when we have already done an encampment intervention, that we keep those areas safe and secure. And that includes our parks, our libraries, our senior centers, our beaches, and all of the places that our public should be able to safely gather and access.
More with LA City Councilwoman Traci Park after the break. Don't go away. You're watching In Focus SoCal. Welcome back to In Focus SoCal. Let's get back to our conversation with LA City Councilwoman Traci Park. You're running for re-election in 2026. What would you say is your top accomplishment during the time that you served thus far?
I think the drastic reductions in homelessness on the West Side are one of my top accomplishments. But as we head into this election cycle, there are some other things that are really driving me forward. Making sure that this disaster recovery continues to move forward, and my work to ensure that every victim has a pathway home is a responsibility that weighs very, very heavy on me. I have also worked incredibly hard in Venice, our city's #1 tourist destination, to improve homelessness and public safety. And we went, under my predecessor, from being rated the most dangerous beach in America to back on Travel and Leisure's top 10 list. We just landed Baywatch. We are going to be hosting a major fan activation for the World Cup in 2026. And now we have major Olympic and Paralympic events coming right to Venice. The Olympics will be the largest thing we have ever done in Venice, and I fought really hard to make this possible. I'd like to see it through. And on the homelessness front, we have made progress, and we continue to, but my work isn't done, and I don't like to leave a project unfinished.
You had a 20-year successful career as a municipal attorney before running for city council. How has your legal experience and background help you in dealing with the city council issues, the city issues, all of the things that you have taken on?
You know, as an outsider coming into City Hall, there's very little that can prep you for the realities of what you'll confront as a council member. But I will say, you know, my work as a trial lawyer, when you're in trial, all eyes are on you, everything else has already failed, and winning is the only option. That is what every day in city council feels like. The fight is endless. The days are both long and short at the same time. It has been, you know, an incredible learning opportunity for me, and the academic part of the job is something that I absolutely thrive at.
Something that is unique that you do is you post updates, your CD11 updates on social media, where you go out to your different areas, to your different neighborhoods, and meet up with your field deputies and talk about what they are seeing in their areas. What prompted you to do that, and what do you get out of that the most that you wouldn't get from a report or a phone call with them?
That's a great question. Thank you. So, you know, for a long, long time as a constituent myself in Council District 11, it was very, very difficult to get information out of the council office, really kind of hard to understand what the role was. And so we have tried to be very, very different in our approach, very transparent. And I am on the ground in my district as frequently as I can be. And the time that I spend there is incredibly valuable. When I have issues that require my input or a vote, studying them where they are is how I learn and how I make decisions. The work that my field deputies do every day on the ground is why we see the progress that we see. And I think it's important for our residents to know what this job is, what it involves, and the kinds of things that we tackle every single day in CD11.
My last question for you is 2025 has been a challenging year for most people on different levels. What has been the one highlight, the one bright spot when you will be looking back on this year that you will smile about?
In a year of such utter loss and devastation, neighbors we never knew before became family. I met people that I might not ever have met otherwise, who I now count amongst my friends. And so while there has been a lot of loss and heartbreak, I've seen relationships grow stronger. I've seen unexpected friendships blossom. And I have seen a united community on the West Side showing up for each other when it mattered most. And that's something that I'm always going to look back on, even in the darkness, as the brightest moments.
That is a very significant memory and something that is really unique to this entire year. So, Councilwoman Park, it is a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you so much for coming down to our studio.
You're welcome. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage, and click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.